Welcome back to Freerider. We are just outside the Melbourne CBD at the Mecca for motorcycles, Harley-Heaven. And I'm picking up a Lowrider S and a Heritage Softail for our ride today. I'm pretty excited about hitting the twisties in the Yarra Valley, but I'm also pretty pumped to introduce you to our guest. He's an actor, presenter, host, and he has the voice of an angel, Axel Whitehead. Hey, dude.
Hey, man. Good morning. Very well indeed. Yourself?
Yeah, really good, really good. Good
Excellent. Good to see you too. What a day. We've got sun, we've got beautiful motorcycles, and I'm pumped.
Yeah, have you ever ridden either of these guys before?
I have not. They are very, very sexy motorcycles. I've had the pleasure of riding the Pan Am, the Sportster S, and the Sports Glide, but I would love to steal this.
I was going to say, in that case, I better let you have your pick. So Lowrider S it is.
This is mine. Awesome. Let's do it.
Now, I'm not local to Melbourne.
Yes,
so you might have to help me out on this ride a little bit. You got something nice lined up for us. You said Yarra Valley before.
Yeah, well, Yarra Valley is just such a beautiful place. It's close to Melbourne. Best Pinot in the world is grown there. Beautiful rolling hills, some lovely twisties. Way sexier than WA, but we can debate that on the way. But no, I'm
controversial
pumped.
opinion.
The sun is out, and let's do it, huh?
Yeah, dude, awesome. Well, let's
Cool.
get it going.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, man.
I always like to start at the beginning with stuff like this.
Oh,
and
yes.
Obviously, huge show, Australian Idol. What's that experience like for you?
Well, I had just come back from China with a band. I've been playing these bizarre gigs in China, and a mate had just come back from the UK, and he'd seen the Idol show. I think the first Idol show had launched in the UK, and he was like, "Dude, you got to do this thing. I'm signing you up for this show," and rah rah. And I had no idea what he was talking about. And anyway, it came to the day, and he was like, "Oh, tomorrow we've got to be at the tennis centre for this thing." And I was like, "What is this thing?" And he said, "Trust me, trust me, trust me. You've just got to do this show." And we'd been out for a bit of a late night, and we arrive at, I don't know, 6 or 7 in the morning, and here's this massive crowd and cameras. I'm like, "Is this a TV show?" And he's like, "Yeah, dude, this is the thing I've been talking about." And I was like, "Oh, righto." And I was like, "Oh, I really don't want to do this, man." Anyway, he made me do it, and I sung and then got through to the next round, and sung again. I was like, okay, so this is like a reality TV show. Okay, cool. And lo and behold, it was probably the best thing I did for my career because, I got some exposure, I got to understand the got an introduction to the TV industry, and then got a job hosting video hits for Channel 10 out of it, which was an incredible experience. So yeah.
So that was kind of like the jumping off point for, I guess, like your media career, right?
Yeah. I've been a full-time muso. I'd studied at the College of the Arts in Melbourne and I didn't actually last the whole course, but I'd attempted sort of 2 years of serious study and was just playing around towns.
Had you always planned to have music in your future?
Well, when I was leaving school, you've got to, make a plan, and are you going to go to university and rah-rah. I grew up on a sheep and cropping farm about 3.5 hours west of Melbourne, and I had got myself a job jackarooing on a property in far north Queensland and was going to go and work on a cattle station and break horses, and was like, right, I'm gonna become a farmer. And I'd played music all my life, sort of played trumpet, drums, piano, guitar, rah-rah-rah. And my mum took me to an open day at the College of the Arts. And I'd started singing because singing took a lot less practice than playing instruments, and especially trumpet. And I was like, this singing thing is cool, man. I don't have to do much practice. And went to an open day of the VCA and auditioned and got in. I was like, okay, maybe I can do this. And then, lo and behold, realised what it takes to make a living as a full-time musician, which is a lot of hard work and a lot of wedding gigs and corporate gigs and bloody singing carols on a street corner. And, when you're working your way up through the scene, you do any and every gig. So, yes, I mean, once I'd made that decision, music was what I was going to do, 100%.
I want to ask you about video hits. That was such a huge show.
Yeah, that was big. That was.
And I mean, what an incredible experience. Did you enjoy it?
man, it was such a good experience because not knowing much about TV, I learned about production and about lighting and makeup and researching and also just learned a lot of different musical styles and stuff that I wasn't into, because the way it would work would we'd meet with the record companies each week, and then the record companies would go, okay, well, here's all the new records that we've got to promote, and we've got, bloody Justin Timberlake's going to be in town, or Beyonce, or Tony Hawk, whoever.
Yeah.
And we'd get to, I'd get to research them and listen to their back catalogue, and also the fact that I am a musician, I could take the interview a little deeper.
Yeah, you can vibe them, right? Like you can really talk to them about that.
And rather than just like, who are you sleeping with, what's happening on your video, and bloody how much money do you make, or whatever else. Actually really get into the nuts and bolts about the production of the record, or, there might be a reference to some old school music. And I thought it was a great opportunity to try and educate, educate maybe younger people if the Black Eyed Peas had sampled, something from Tribe Called Quest or an old blues line or whatever else. We could talk about that and actually sort of, flesh it out a little bit more, and hopefully shed some light on different things that genre might not allow for, So that was really cool.
I love the Tribe Called Quest reference. They're like one of my favorites.
Oh, aren't they the greatest, man?
What
happened to hip-hop? What happened to hip-hop?
What was your favorite act that you got to interview?
Jeez Louise, that's a good question.
Or was there someone that you interviewed that you were like, man, this is just too much?
Yeah, probably two. Because I didn't know a lot about pop music, I wouldn't really get, because I'd just sort of grown up on country, jazz, blues, folk music, everything but pop.
Yeah.
I didn't really get that starstruck, which was really handy because, I could sort of compose myself during interviews and not be kind of, as starstruck as I am now in your presence, So, but when we got to interview Tony Hawk, I lost my shit.
That is pretty good.
I was just like a little schoolgirl, could barely string a sentence together.
Yeah.
And Foo Fighters, that was amazing too. And God rest his soul, Taylor Hawkins, him and Dave Grohl.
I can imagine that must have been an amazing interview.
Oh, it was just like chatting to an old buddy, And what I found really interesting was the guys at the top of their game were the nicest, were the sweetest. They had nothing, maybe they'd gone through the ringer, they'd made it to the top, they realised how hard it was, they're humbled, they've got nothing to prove, they're just really genuine, lovely people.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting thing to kind of learn, that the guys that had the most success were often the nicest people. But no, we got to go to Japan to interview Justin Timberlake, Pharrell Williams. We had Beyonce, Oasis over in the UK. We got some great junkets, man.
So basically everyone.
Everyone, and here's like some 24-year-old kid from the country, and all of a sudden I'm getting, flown around the world by Sony Records to interview rock stars. I was like, how did this happen? This is just, from wanting to be a farmer and break horses, and now you're doing this. So it's crazy the turns that life, the opportunities that life hands you sometimes.
Well, fantastic, dude.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I actually know a great little cafe up here.
Oh, sick.
Yep, it's called Mocha and Lime. Do you reckon we should pull in and grab a feed?
Oh, yes, sir.
All right, dude. Oh, here we go. Hey, Heather, how you doing?
Good, how are you? Hummus and scrambled eggs?
That's me. Oh, wow, that looks so good.
The trout avocado, let's do it. Oh, look at the balsamic too.
Thank you so
Heather.
much. Axel, tell me how you got to motorcycles.
I got into motorcycles at a very young age. I was lucky enough to grow up on a farm about probably 4 hours west of here, between Hamilton and Warrnambool, sheep and crop farm. I'm the youngest of 3 boys, and so I would always get the hand-me-down. But four-wheelers, that was the dream. always wanted a four-wheeler, just to be able to do beautiful fishies and rappies and find clay pans, and three-wheelers were getting phased out because they were very, very dangerous.
So dangerous.
So many terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, four-wheelers. So yeah, that was how I got started.
What about street bikes?
Street bikes wasn't till I must have been in my 20s, and I was in Sydney at the time. A mate said, "Here, have a squirt on my road bike." I didn't have a license, but I knew how to ride. And I remember going through the Sydney tunnel and had aftermarket pipes, and I just heard this thunder and this roar coming out of this motorcycle, and the echo in the tunnel. I was like, "This is me."
Yeah.
and just the feeling of riding on bitumen, you know, it felt like rails rather than growing up on dirt. And it was just responsive, and I could throw it round, and also meeting other riders, sort of finding that sense of community. I was like, oh, this is actually a thing. Like, it's not just you ride bikes to, you know, move sheep or do jobs on. It's actually a thing you can do. And there's a lot of people doing it. And I, fell in love with it, and riding ever since.
That power, that noise of a bike going through the tunnel, I think unless you ride, there's almost nothing like it.
There's nothing like it, is it?
Especially if you're on a group ride. I know it's like annoying when people see these big trooper Harleys going through a tunnel and everyone's like, rah. But man, like the power you feel being on that bike, out in the air, and that noise.
Something else.
Something else.
Something else.
How'd you like the Low Rider S?
I love it. It just feels quite nimble. I don't know if the wheelbase is a little shorter, but it just it feels like you can do anything with it. It's really friendly. Goes like a cut cat. It's been a really interesting journey riding the fleet of Harleys, because I didn't grow up on Harleys. I've ridden the Sports Glide, the Sportster S, and the Pan Am, which I got to tell you about the Pan Am. Love the Pan Am.
Yeah.
So getting to know the fleet is unreal.
I guess it leads me to my next question too. Then what's your favourite Harley?
Pan America,
All the
hands
way?
down, hands down.
They are beautiful bikes, aren't they?
Bloody unbelievable. And it's when a manufacturer sort of takes a risk and does something that they haven't done before, that's exciting. And it's funny when, you know, you get so loyal to a brand with a motorcycle. It's kind of like, this is it, and there's no other motorcycles, and how dare they kind of venture out or whatever else. And now Harley's done this, and I got on one about 6 months ago, and we were in Sydney, and we went and did the Putty Road. There's a really great ride sort of north of Sydney.
Yeah.
And a mate was on a sports bike, and I looked around, and he would have been 2 Ks behind me. This thing flies,
Yeah, it
it's
pulls.
responsive, it's nimble. It just did everything that I asked of it, and I was really surprised.
You just took one up through the Flinders Ranges, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah.
I've got a mate who owns a pub in a little town called Parachilna, which is just sort of next to the Flinders Ranges. But yeah, I loved it, and I had to hand it back, and it was a sad, sad day. Yeah, when you fall in love with a motorcycle and then you've got to sell it or give it back, it's the
Like,
bloody
we'll take that one
worst.
back.
How did you get started?
This is not about me, it's about you. You gave me an illustration when we were writing about like flow with music, right? And how sometimes you're just like flowing and improvising, and sometimes you're just clicking with people. I feel like motorcycles are the same way sometimes. Not to get too...
No, this is truth. Like, people say, why do you ride? Or what is the philosophy or anything about riding? And it's the ultimate sense of freedom, because it's just you on the road, and you feel everything from nature, from bugs to bloody rain to everything. I think it's great personally for my mental health, because it just gives me a time to get away from everything. My body and my mind slows down. I become one with the motorcycle, because I find if you're having one of those days where you're fighting the bike and, you know, you're a bit anxious or you're a bit angry or whatever else, and you just can't quite find the saddle, you know, and you're just having one of those days where, you're not connecting. And so I would sort of pull over, a couple of deep breaths, and just trying to get back into my body to connect to that and to have that sense of flow. And when it's right, and you enter a corner at the right speed, and you're halfway through and you exit, and it's just like you get shot out of the corner, there is no better feeling.
Poetry.
Oh, it is poetry in motion, man. Yeah.
Well, speaking of which, should we kill these coffees and go make
Let's
some
do
music?
it. Let's do it.
Sounds good. When did you get bit by the acting bug?
I'd always wanted to act. Like, I'd done a bit of acting at school and a couple of musicals and bits and pieces. But I just thought the idea of taking on a personality and understanding acting as a craft and all that sort of stuff, it really interests me. So I started to have acting lessons and realised that it is a lot harder than it looks.
Yeah.
And to also I think when you start acting, you just kind of play yourself, you know,
Yeah.
and you play yourself in a different sort of environment. And so, you know, it took a long time to sort of break bad habits and to be able to be relaxed in front of a camera.
Well, you
to be,
you started out with a pretty major part on Home and Away, right?
yeah, I mean that was kind of he was a rock star that had fallen from grace, and I mean I'm no rock star, but
They really love throwing you in the deep end, Axel.
yeah, it was a stretch, I'll tell you that much. But yeah, I mean, yeah, my first, I mean, I've done it. I think I did a couple of little short films and bits and pieces.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was thrown in the deep end, and Home and Away was my first sort of serious gig.
And you've done a little stint on Neighbours as well, correct?
Yeah, I did a guestie on Neighbours.
Is it one of those things where like the Home and Away guys hate the Neighbours guys and vice versa? Is there a bit of gang stuff going on there?
Well, I think when you go to like the Logies or like an awards thing, it's like, oh, that's the Neighbours crew, we're the Home and Away. we're the bad bastards of Soapyland, man.
Yeah.
So there might have been a little bit of that, you know, when you're in your 20s and you've got a bit of ego about you.
So after Home and Away, you finish up there, and then do you straight away head to the States, or what are you thinking?
I took a couple of breaks from Home and Away to go and do some songwriting in the States and play some gigs and do a few things. Yeah, working on Shameless, that was my first gig there. I got sort of half a season playing an Aussie rock star.
Yeah.
Another
Jeez,
stretch.
They're really stereotyping you there, weren't they? I mean, Shameless is a huge show, man. But what has been your favourite role so far?
Favourite role, I would have to say, probably Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I got to play a superhero on a Marvel TV show. And that was,
come
man,
on.
it was bigger than God's undie. The stunts, the special effects, learning how to work with CGI stuff. Yeah, hands down, that was just an incredible experience. And it was really funny. I was actually working with an actor called Luke Mitchell, who him and I started on Home and Away together around the same time. And then he was one of the leads on this show, and then I got a gig on it. And
how cool.
Man, it was crazy. We were like...
Come full circle.
Doing scenes together, it was a blast.
So what's kind of become your focus?
My number one love is music, you know?
Yeah.
I'm lucky that I can make money in other areas when the work's there, you know? If there's an acting job or some TV work or voiceover work or writing and making your own stuff.
Axel, tell me what you got going on now. What's coming up for you?
I'm getting back playing a bunch. I've got some shows coming up at a place called Bird's Basement in Melbourne. We're going to be booking more shows around town. Some TV, which is going to be in the pipeline.
And how can people find you, Axel?
AXLE Whitehead. That's Instagram. Facebook is Axel Whitehead.
Hey, where can we find some of your music, man? You on Spotify and stuff?
Yeah, Spotify. There's an old record there. There's a new tune that I put out this year called One Gun, which is like a sort of country, sort of Bruce Springsteen-y kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm really, really proud of that. So it's a sound that I've been working on with a guy called Carl Dimataga from Sydney.
Yeah.
It's kind of country, rockabilly kind of stuff.
Amazing,
but yeah, it's beautiful to be playing again, man.
Well,
so
it's been fantastic riding with you today, dude. You showed me some amazing roads up here. I can't believe, like my first time in the Yarra Valley, I cannot believe how beautiful this is.
awesome. Well, thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
Anytime, mate. Anytime.